Okay, you guys, we are live. I set this up well ahead of time, and I was like, oh, I'm way early for this thing. But then at the last minute, everything didn't work, and so I had to rush. The plan was, you can set these live streams to like sort of show up where people can click on and get in there at least ahead of time. It was going to be set up like a half an hour ahead of time. It's now 5:01. We're a minute late, and I'm just going live now. So we'll see who is able to jump in. This also was last minute, sort of. I should set these up. You know what I want to do. Hey, Scott, good to see you. You know what I want to do is start, like once I do these on a more regular basis, start setting them up as a scheduled situation, and maybe have guests on. Maybe I'll have guests, you guys. Anyway, so the plan here today, we'll see how long this video is. This will be either really short, because I'm going to give an update on the Bioactive, or long, depending on how many people jump in and who has questions and stuff like that. What's going to happen is I'm going to talk about the Bioactive, and people can jump in and give their or ask questions. They can, especially if they super chat, then I'll see the questions, because I'm going to try to stay on topic if I can, which is really hard to do when you're reading a chat thing. Hey, Hannah, I will answer that. We're going to talk about how to control the humidity in Bioactive. So I'm kind of stalling right now, waiting for a few people to jump in. So if you're watching this video after, like not live, it's already been recorded, just, bump up ahead a few minutes until I start talking about the actual stuff. I chose to do this topic because the first video that I did like 6 months ago, 5.5, 6 months ago, whatever it was on the Bioactive Vivarium. And that's gotten more views than anything else. I don't know if it was because it was my first one and it's been up the longest, but it's got a lot more views. So there's a lot of people that are interested in Bioactive. And I'll probably do a specific video on the Bioactive again, like after a year. I think it's got a month or two before it'll be a year old, where I'll cover some of this stuff. But what I wanted to do was try to like cover a little bit of it in this one, so that there's another video up that talks about the Bioactive, because a lot of people are here for the Bioactive. Some people are here for the snakes, the morphs, and the little breeding project. Some are here for snake care. A lot of people are here just for that. I wish I had more Bioactive vivariums that I could sort of cover, but this one's big. It's got a lot of stuff going on, and it's got a ball python in it, which is kind of rare for Bioactive. You see a lot of people with dart frogs and little chameleons and stuff like that, and it's ball pythons don't always do well with Bioactive. I mean, they do fine. The Bioactive doesn't always do well with ball pythons. So I'm going to read these really quick, and then I'm going to stop reading. And if people want to ask questions that they're sure that I'll see, do a super chat, because then I'll be notified and I'll answer your question. Otherwise, there's a handful of people here, so I'll start getting into it. Let's see. Hannah, I'm going to answer your question in a second. Scott's in. Hi, Scott. James. Kent might be here. He's not here now, but he might. Hey, Dan. Elizabeth, hi there. Let's see. James is only here for Kent. Man, Kent's got fans. Kent might show up. Let's see. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. What's up, DE Reptiles? Good to see you. Okay, so there's a handful of people that have jumped in here. I'm going to drink my tea here, and then we're going to talk about this Bioactive. Can you guys hear me okay, by the way? And tell me A, if you can hear me okay, because I've got this nice little microphone that I think is the main one that I'm using. And live that I did was really sketchy. Like there was a lot of pauses and stuff, which I did not like. And other than getting software, I need to get software for these lives. But other than that, I don't know how to control that. All good. Okay, great. Thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. T-Coop, I'll answer that question real quick because that's a good segue into talking about the bioactive. The reason that bioactives don't do well with ball pythons typically is that ball pythons are big, heavy-bodied animals, and a lot of plants don't survive big, heavy-bodied animals. So that's all it is. And also they bulldoze sometimes. They'll create burrows and dig up your plants and stuff like that. So it kind of depends on the ball python. I think I've figured out how to do this, and I talk about this in that video on this vivarium. I think I figured out how to do it to make it work as well as it can work. And also, I probably got lucky in that I have a snake who's willing to sort of go around the plants. I've moved plants out of his path, basically. But a lot of people will try a ball python in a bioactive vivarium, and they lose a plant or two, and they go, this didn't work, and they throw them back in a regular tank or a tub or whatever, rather than giving it the time. And I kind of wanted to figure out if there was a way that it could be done. And basically, I set this thing up. In fact, when I do the video, the year video, I'll show pictures and video from when I first set it up. It had like bromeliad flowers and stuff. It had all kinds of different colors. It looked fantastic. But there was stuff that just didn't survive. And there was stuff that I could tell wasn't going to survive unless I moved it, because he's got a specific path that he goes when he cruises around here at night. And if there's a plant in the way, it's going to get trampled. So that's why snakes don't do well. That's why bioactive doesn't do well with ball pythons specifically. There are smaller bodied snakes that they might do okay with. And actually, I misspoke. It does do fine. You just have to do it right. You've got to set it up right. But let me give you an example really quick of a plant that I had to pull out of there. I had this plant. I love this little vine. This is called I don't remember what it's called, but it's a little vine that is really cool. But these leaves are super fragile, and this, like, the vine itself is really fragile. So I liked it a lot, and I was like, nah, I got to pull that thing out of there. So it's called a paradromonia. It's a paradromonia, you guys. So again, if you've got a question that you really want me to answer, do a super chat. Is that even available? Can you guys even do that? Somebody tell me if your super chats are available. All right. So here we go. Let's take a look at this. Right now, the inspector, by the way, is in his warm side hide, where he spends 22 hours of the day in his warm side, and he's in shed, so I'm not pulling him out. I plan on pulling him out, but he's deep in shed, and I'll pull out other snakes probably. Most of them have just eaten, so maybe I'll pull out a snake. Anyway, so here's some things that I've done. For those of you that have seen my other videos on this bioactive, seen me talk about it, I've talked about the fact that I've partially covered the top of this with plastic so that the light can shine through, and then I've left about 25% of it open. Well, I decided, Dan, thanks for the super chat, just to confirm that that it's good. I appreciate that. So anyway, the last video where I talked about covering this top, I covered a lot of it with plastic so the light could shine through. And I've now covered the whole thing. It's covered with plastic and tape 100%, because, I was spraying this down once a week, sometimes twice a week, which isn't bad. I could do that. But I was like, if I just covered the rest of that top, I can water that thing once every 2 weeks, which is probably better for the plants anyway. And that's what I've done. And it's worked out like that. I add water. I have a sprayer thing, and I just spray I'm not misting the entire enclosure, but I'm spraying it down and spraying the substrate. Speaking of substrate, I've added substrate to this. When you have a bioactive that's working for a while, your cleanup crew will eat, and your snake will compress, and things will just sort of decay and whatever, and you'll end up adding more. So the substrate that I use is from the Bio Dude. It's really good substrate that you don't need a drainage layer for at the bottom. So it holds moisture like right in the middle. This is all nice moist soil, but at the top where the inspector crawls around is dry. So that's exactly how you want it, and that's how it's been for a long time. So I ordered another bag of that and dumped it in there about a month or so ago. I've pulled plants and I've added plants. I have a video on. Let me see if I can move my situation here. I have a video. Ew, I hope I don't break that. You know what? I don't like that at all, because now I'm risking breaking my door and I'm covering up the Vivarium, so I'm just going to leave that shut. What was I just starting to say, you guys? Do you see how I get distracted with myself? I'm not even reading your comments right now. I'm just getting distracted with myself here. I forgot what I was talking about. I added the soil. Nope, we went over that. I don't know. Hi, James. Just because I saw that, I'll respond, because I'm looking for somebody to tell me what I was just talking about. This is a 36 by 18 wide, or 18 deep by 24 high, I think. Pretty sure that's what it is. And it works really well for the inspector, especially because he has more than just the surface to crawl around on. And some of the surface is taken up by plants, but he can crawl through the plants and everything else. But he can also get all up here, and he does. He likes to climb up top and around, and he kind of has a route that he goes. And really, it's interesting. When he first was introduced to this Bioactive, he would go up top. He loves to do the little climbing thing. And he was always falling. Like in the middle of the night, I'd hear a thud, and I'd come out and look, and he'd be like, pulling himself together and whatever. But he'd have fallen on the plants and stuff. He'd fall like every night, at least once. Now he never falls at all. So he's just learned how to do it. He's learned the area and figured out how to climb around, which is a point that I'll make, that ball pythons are clumsy. So if you put them in an arboreal cage system and it's too high, they'll really hurt themselves by falling. And they do climb. I see a lot of posts it's usually on Facebook. Somebody will post a picture of their ball python, maybe climbing up a thing like this or sitting on a deal or whatever, and they'll go, and everybody says ball pythons don't climb. And then everybody jumps in with their argument that ball pythons do climb, and everybody's saying, no, they do climb. They climb. Mine climbs. I've never heard somebody say that ball pythons don't climb. That's not an argument that people ever make. I've never heard it. What I've heard is whether they're arboreal or not. People make that argument as to whether they're arboreal or semi-arboreal or terrestrial. What do we call that? But I've never heard somebody say that ball pythons don't climb. But people love to make the argument, and it's a huge one-sided argument always. There's never anybody that comes in and goes, no, they don't. They never climb. Everybody just loves to show their picture of their snake climbing. The fact is that ball pythons will climb, and they seem to enjoy cruising around at certain heights. They're found in the wild climbing. They don't live any part of their life in the trees, though. So I don't consider them arboreal or even semi-arboreal. Goats can climb up into trees. There's those African goats that do it a lot. Goats are not considered arboreal or semi-arboreal animals. So I don't ever argue with people on Facebook, and I don't think it matters, what you call them or not, but they are not. There's a lot of species of any kind of animal that can climb and will climb, but that doesn't make them arboreal. A ball python is a big, heavy-bodied snake. They're not, a reticulated python is semi-arboreal, and they have a long, thin body. I mean, thick bodies when they're huge, but compared to their length, they have a long, thin, arboreal body. Ball pythons are closer to like take a blood python, a big fat blood python, and a say a smaller, thin, reticulated python. Ball pythons are somewhere in that range. They don't have a climbing body, even though they can and do. Okay, so again, I'm gonna keep on with this. If you have a question that you want me to answer, throw up a super chat and I will answer it. I didn't when Dan threw that up, I didn't get the ding though. There's supposed to be like a ding. Anyway, so look at this plant, by the way. Oh, you can see it here. So this is a zebra plant, and I don't know if you know what a zebra plant is, but it looks really sad. It looks like a Dr. Seuss plant because it's just 2 sticks. You know what? Look at this. I can solve this problem. So there it is. It's 2 sticks with little leaves at the top. This was dying. I had it potted as just a house plant, and it was dying. And I looked it up and realized that it needed, there was a care guide that told me that it needed more humidity, and it basically needed warmth and humidity. So I was like, all right, I'm going to pull a plant out of the vivarium and put the zebra plant back in. But then I trimmed all the leaves. Like, it's a big full plant, but all the big full leaves were going brown. So I trimmed them all off, and I'm hoping that the inspector doesn't trample it before it can get established. You know, these leaves look good. I mean, it looks like it's doing all right. It's standing up. So hopefully the roots can get established before he tramples it. It's been like 2 weeks though that it's been in there. So there's that. So here's what he does. This is kind of interesting. He lives most of the time in his warm side hide. He rarely hangs out in the cold side hide. That's his bathroom. He goes to the cold side hide to poop, which I think is really smart because he knows he's going to poop and he knows he's not going to hang out in there. So he goes and does a thing in there and then goes back to his warm side. So he hangs out a little bit at night in the cold side hide. And about a week ago, he spent the day sleeping in the cold side hide. But that was the first time I'd seen him do that in ages. He's always just in his warm side. The other thing I'll say about Bioactive, you know, people say that Bioactive is great because you don't have to do anything. You can just set it and forget it. Ron Popeil, you guys. I do more work in this Bioactive than I do in any of my other enclosures. It takes work. Maybe not for dart frogs. Maybe not for little anoles or something like that. But for ball pythons, you still have to spot clean. The only snake that I have that I've had respiratory infection issues with is the inspector, and it probably was because his warm side hide wasn't clean enough. Now I'm really careful about making sure that it's cleaned constantly. But I wasn't before. I was kind of like, the cleanup crew will do it. You know, I was spot cleaning, but I wasn't sanitizing everything because I've got springtails and isopods in there. So they will clean up some, but you gotta do stuff as well. What I do is when I pull him out, so his hide is subterranean. He can go all the way down. This just comes out. I've got a few pieces of wood that cover a regular black hide that is sitting on the glass. So he can go through that piece of wood and get down to the glass, and he sits at 90 degrees on the glass, and he's happy there. So what I do is when I pull, anytime he comes out, I either spray that down with F10 and wipe it off with F10 and the glass behind, you know, on the side glass and whatever. And I'm also using this thing, which is a UV wand. And those are, don't shine that in your eyes. Even though I just did. I think you'll be okay though. That's a UV wand that sterilizes everything. So I sort of switch back and forth between those things. But this, like my computer's right here, I can take this UV wand and like 10 seconds over my laptop and it sterilizes it. It's pretty great. But I still use F10 every other time because I'm not sure. Like maybe it'll come out that UVC doesn't really work. It's a new technology. I mean, it's probably not a new technology, but it's new to me. So I'm using both. All right. There was something that I mentioned. Oh, the cleanup crew. Here's another interesting thing that's happened in this Bioactive is when I started out with a whole bunch of dwarf isopods, and I put them in there and I was like, I'm never going to see these guys again. And for months, I never saw them. And I thought, oh God, I hope they didn't crash. and I'd go digging for them, and it would take me forever, and I'd find one, and I'd be like, great, okay, they haven't crashed. Well, now, here, I'm going to bring you into the Vivarium again. Now they're everywhere. Hold on. Let's see if we can watch this. Hold on. Let's see if I can get it to focus. I mean, you can see them crawling around. It's not going to focus on them. There we go. So they love hanging out in there. I use dwarf white isopods because they're really tiny and they can't bite a ball python. I heard when I was doing a lot of research on this at first, I had heard that people have sometimes, it's rare, but they've sometimes had problems. Here's a little guy on the tip of that. They've sometimes had problems with like dairy cow isopods chewing on the skin of a ball python. It's not going to do any real damage, but you know, you don't want bugs biting your snake. So I don't know how big of a threat that is, but it didn't really matter. I just wanted a cleanup crew that would work as a cleanup crew. And so I got the dwarf white because it's the lowest chance of my snake getting bit. But they're all over the place. And I think they're doing a pretty decent job. So, Dan, thanks for the super chat, Dan. You guys, I'm going to set this up where I'm going to have a software, and I'm going to have a program that does a little super chat celebration. It's going to be great. And I'm going to have guests on these lives. Just wait till I have time to figure all that out. Okay, Dan asks, do you think you will move him to a non-bioactive enclosure in the future and put something else in the bioactive? That's a really great question. You know, I don't want to, but I have thought about it. I don't know. I think he's doing well in the bioactive, and I guess it would depend. I mean, he's not a super active. I mean, it's a ball python, so he's not super active. He is active at night, and there's that video that I recently did of him cruising around the bioactive. He does that for a couple hours each night, or not each night, but maybe a few nights a week. He also, before I put him in the bioactive, he did fantastic in a tub, you know. So he's happy with whatever. But as you know, if I get other species of snakes, there might be another snake that's more appropriate for that bioactive. But to answer the short answer is no, I don't think so. I don't think I'm going to move him out of this bioactive. But we'll see. Oh, you guys, thanks so much for the super chats. Oh my gosh. Hannah, so nice. Love your videos. Thanks for being so informative and helpful. I added isopods to mine about a week ago and haven't seen them since. Now I feel a little better. Yeah. Thanks so much for that super chat. That's really sweet. Yeah, those isopods, man, they are hard to find. But give it a few months. Give it like 6 months or something, and maybe less. I guess it depends on the species that you throw in there. They'll be all over the place. They are good at reproducing themselves. Scott, oh my gosh, $50. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. After YouTube takes their share and conversion, it will only equate to about $13 US. I know, but there's a bit to show support. Don't stop doing what you do. It's working. Keep it up. Oh, Scott, thanks so much. That's really nice. That was a big super chat just to give me a compliment. That's really, really nice. I appreciate that. You know, you guys have been so great jumping on early on this channel. You know, when I started this, nobody in the reptile community knew who I was. And I kind of started this because I wanted to document my journey into breeding. That was kind of the idea of it. And, you know, I thought that maybe people would start catching on to it if the content was good. And I did them consistently for about a year, people would start catching on. And, you know, the fact that I was just monetized and we're 6 months in at this point is really cool. And the people that watch the channel and like the channel and enjoy the stuff and send me these nice messages and letters and stuff like what Jessica Peretti did with these. If you saw my last video, I showcased these fantastic rocks that she made. The inspectors is in there too. Can you see that? No. Look at this. His is back here. See it hiding behind the zebra plant? There it is. Anyway. Anyway, I am really appreciative of everybody who enjoys this channel and gives me the confidence to keep going. These take a lot of time to produce, and just hearing that people are enjoying it keeps me going. So thanks again for that. Okay, what else did I want to talk about? Let me look at my notes really quick. We talked about that. Yep, all that stuff. Oh, bug catchers, you guys. I posted about this on Instagram, but here's the thing. When you have a bioactive enclosure, you're going to have, you're going to get gnats, like little tiny gnats. This thing is called a catchy. I'm not sponsored, but I have 2 of them because I bought one and I told my sister about it and she bought one and there's something about it that didn't work for her. So she gave it to me, but 2 is great to have. Anyway, so what this is, you plug this little sucker in with the USB and it's got a light here. I've got a USB right here. Watch this. So it's got this light that attracts the bugs, and this is a fan that sucks it down into a little, oh, so it opens on this side. Sucks it down, just look at all the bugs on that thing. That's a little, sticky deal. But look at that. That was the last time. Now, I haven't had bugs. I haven't had a bug problem in there for a long time. But what I do is I pull him out for a little handling session, and then I just put this just somewhere in there. Like it can just sit there and run for a while. It really works if he's inbreeding with one of the girls in one of their tubs. I'll throw it in overnight and get all the bugs. But I've had a bug infestation 2 or 3 times in there. It's a hatching. It's not an infestation. It's a hatching of these little tiny flies. They just hatch. So anyway, get yourself a catchy if you have similar problems. I also have plants all over my house, and so I'll get not in the vivarium, but I'll get a hatching just in my house, and they're sitting in the closet and ready to go when I want to use them. So that was that I wanted to mention. Trimming, yeah, so I trim these occasionally. I end up with more plants in my house because if I get a good trimming, I want to keep it. I never want to throw them away. But these, I've got a number of different vines in here. This one is falling down. But this is one, can you even see? No, you can't see. Look at this. I'm going to bring you with me again. Does this work, you guys, to just, hang on. I'm not good at working this camera. So this is so my pothos is planted down here. Sorry about the camera work, you guys. I've got to look at I'm doing this sort of backwards because I got to look at the screen while I'm doing. So my pothos is planted right here next to this. Somebody tell me what this plant is. This is a really common plant, and I can't remember the name of it. But they're planted right next to one another. And the pothos is growing all the way up here and around. And so, and here, that's still the same plant. So I'll end up trimming that. And then this is a Swiss cheese vine. Same thing. It's planted down here, sort of behind the inspector's cold side hide. And that's growing up and around. I got to trim that. And then, and I have trimmed it occasionally. And it's given me a really nice house plant. There's another. Then this other one. This one here is weird. This is a, I don't remember what it is, but I planted it and then forgot about it. And what happened here, I'm just going to sort of, it's going the wrong way. What happened was I planted that kind of in the back by this wood, and then I put plants in front of it and I forgot about it. And then a few months later, I looked at it again. I found it. I remembered that I had it, and I looked at it, and it hadn't died. Like, it wasn't doing bad. All the leaves were fine, but it was in exactly the same state that it was when I planted it months before. So all I did was move a plant in front of it, like out of the way so it can get some light. And as soon as it got light, it started growing. So now it's growing pretty well. It's, doubled in size, at least in the last couple months, just because some of this grow lamp is hitting it. Elizabeth, thanks for the super chat. Me and my whole family love you and your channel. Keep up the good work. Oh, thanks so much. That's really nice. I love that kids are into it. I've heard from a number of people that they watch the channel with their kids, and I think it's great, because if they're into the funny stuff or whatever, and they accidentally get some science too, that's really cool. Love that. I'm just checking to see what else I missed, because I want to get through this, and then you know what I did miss for sure is Miss Grimm, who is a avid follower of the channel, asked me a question. She wasn't going to be on the live, but she asked a question about now this is a good time for this, because we're done talking about the bioactive. Unless you guys have questions, unless you guys have questions specifically about that, you can ask. But Miss Grimm had asked me to do a video on desensitizing a snake's head and tail. And I don't need to do a full video on it, because I'll just show you what I do. If you, hi, Molly Malone. Molly Malone just shed about a half an hour, like literally was crawling out of her skin a half an hour before I went on. Look at how pretty she is in those new clothes. Hi, baby girl. Hi. So desensitizing their head and tail is important to me anyway, because, if I ever have to take them to the vet and the vet needs to mess with them, I want them to have had the experience of having their head, messed with a little bit. Now, when I do that, I'm kind of lightly grabbing her head and just sort of manipulating her. And, you can run your hand over their eyes, because remember that these eyes are not like ours. They're covered. They have a permanent set of goggles on, and these get shed when they shed their skin. So ball pythons are head shy and tail shy, probably because those are maybe the most vulnerable things. I wouldn't have guessed that their tail is the most vulnerable, but maybe it is, because they typically jump when you touch their tail. So I just like having them know that they can be with me or with a human and have their head touched or their tail touched and nothing bad happens. That's the idea, is, they're cruising around doing their thing, and they get a little touch here or there and nothing bad happens, and it kind of desensitizes their natural reaction to quickly pull away, jerk away, So that's, there you go, Miss Grimm. That is your video on how to desensitize the snake's head and tail. Now, what I tend to do, by the way, when I do this, I just thought of this now. I've never really thought about it, but I think I'm just naturally tend to do it, is I'm not coming from the front of their face and going boop. Like I'm not booping their snoot, because that could be scary. What I usually do is I'm coming from the back of their neck and sliding my hand down, and then going for some of this. She knows it's me. She's not, she knows she's not being grabbed by a predator. And it works. Let's see, Dan, you're so nice to do all these super chats. Have you ever considered raising your own rats for ball python food? P.S. Cool plants. Oh, thanks. I'm glad you like the plants. No, I have not considered raising my own rats for food. I don't want the smell. First of all, I don't have the room. I don't have the space for it. But I don't want the smell, and I don't want to have to deal with. I feed frozen thawed, and I guess if I had my own rats, I would feed pre-killed. But man, that's a lot of work to. For me, it would be a lot of work to also be raising rats and then euthanizing them and whatever. And I wouldn't want to euthanize them. So I am happy to support the businesses that provide frozen thawed rats. And actually, if you guys know of anybody I'm in Burbank, California. If there's anybody in Burbank that provides that locally, that would be cool. I order from Lane Labs and Cold Blooded Cafe mainly. And I have a dedicated freezer right at my feet here that has rats and mice for Lucille because she won't eat rats. Let's see. All right. So, how long have we been on here, you guys? This went long. Oh, we're doing good on time. So what else was I going to say about this? Molly, I just realized Molly really is the only snake that's available to be shown right now because she's the only, she didn't eat yesterday. Everybody ate yesterday. And she was in shed. Well, the inspector didn't eat either, but he's still in shed. And she just shed out. So she's really the only one. Everybody else has bellies full. And by the way, here's a hint since you're watching this live stream, little foreshadowing. I've been doing some target training with some of these snakes, and it's going super well and fast. Like, these ball pythons learn faster than I would have ever expected. So I'm going to do, I don't want to say much more about that because I'm going to do a full video on it, but that's coming up, and that's just interesting. You know, I just did it for fun to see what their reaction would be to target training, and it's going really well. All right, there was another thing that I wanted to talk about. I don't remember what it is. I will real quick answer a couple of questions that are on here. Thanks for the super chatted questions, you guys. I appreciate that. I pretty well stayed on track there, you guys, with that Bioactive. I feel good about it. So I'm going to answer a couple of questions. I'm going to miss a lot, so sorry about that. Let's see. Haunted Cornwall. Jane, thanks for joining us. You probably are gone already. It's 1:30. Maybe Kent can raise rats for you. Kent is terrified of pretty much all species of animal, including rats. And as we know, rats cause much more damage than ball pythons do to the human skin. I doubt Kent knows that. Let's see. Oh, thanks, Dan. I love Ultramel. This is one of my favorite. It's not the most popular recessive gene, but I absolutely love the color of Ultramel, and the fact that the cool thing about Ultramel is it doesn't fade out as much as they get older. It's kind of like Desert Ghost, which I don't have in my collection, but I love Desert Ghost as well. But Ultramel acts like that in that it doesn't fade out. Now, it's not, Desert Ghost is an enhancing gene that kind of makes other genes not fade out too, which is really cool. But Ultramel, she'll stay kind of like this as an adult. And she's also het pied. So she is going to make some Ultramel pieds. And I'm so excited about that. And I have Lydia Dietz, who's a clown het pied. And eventually, after some generations, maybe we'll go for Ultramel clown pieds, which would be super dope also. Let's see. I'm getting back to this thing where I'm reading comments. It's hard to do. Okay, so a lot of you are just talking to each other. That's cool. Okay, so we have some new ball python owners. That's awesome. Let's see. Yeah, so I've had my ball python for about 5 days, and she keeps going to the top of her enclosure, looking as if she's trying to escape. Is this a bad sign or normal? It's not a bad sign, but if she's doing it all day, like during the middle of the day, it's a sign of stress. And that's kind of normal. A few days into a new enclosure, it's kind of normal that they would be stressed like that. I would say make sure, I don't know what your enclosure looks like, but make sure that there's a ton of clutter, that she's got 2 hides, 1 on each side, and lots of stuff to hide behind. Because a lot of times if they're out in the open doing that, what we call glass surfing, sticking their neck way up and sort of poking around at the top, That's sometimes, sometimes they'll just do it. The inspector does it sometimes. But if they're doing it a lot, that could be a sign of stress. And if you just make sure that they have plenty of stuff to hide behind, a lot of clutter, a lot of hides, they'll settle in eventually. That's good. That's a good question. That's a pretty common thing for the young ones. And also blackout, you may know this already because this is a common thing that people tell you to do, but black out 3 sides of your, the back and the 2 sides of your enclosure. That'll make them feel a little bit more secure. They do that when they're not feeling secure. So, Jacob Huggins, I'm 17, love your channel. I don't know if you'd consider me a kid, but I'm young. Yes, you are young. I don't consider you a kid though. But I'm glad that you love the channel. I appreciate that. I'm glad you're watching. What about nighttime and turning upside down? My girl is super bitey and she's just a year old. I try to tell me about turning upside down. Say more about that because I'm not sure what you mean. Like literally laying on her back. Also, somebody asked me at the top of this about humidity, how to keep humidity in, and I think I answered that, but I want to address the specific question because I said I would. It was before we started doing the super chat questions. The humidity for a bioactive is addressed by the substrate. I mean, it is in just about every enclosure, but the substrate handles it, and the top of the enclosure. When I talked about covering it with, you can see through it right now, but that's plastic, so it's covered with plastic and foil tape, and that takes care of the humidity. Oh, she turns her head upside down. Okay, so Pickled Pig Customs. There's a couple things that could mean. If you have a spider ball python or a ball python with neurological problems and they're doing a corkscrewing, turning their head upside down, if it's a corkscrew head upside down, that's a pretty severe, what we call a wobble, neurological problem. So not a spider, but it could happen in champagne or others. But then there's also, they just go up to the top and then tip their head up like that. I mean, but upside down, so her head would go straight up like that, like she's surfing back, she'll go up and then backwards like that. That's just normal. They just do that. But the corkscrewing like this is not normal. That's a neurological issue. She's a fire VPI exanthic. Very cool. So which way does her head go? Is she corkscrewing it upside down, or is she like this upside down? I tried to do it with Molly and it didn't work. Like that. Sorry, am I bothering you? Am I annoying to you? Huh? So it just depends on which way she's corkscrewing. Any snake can have a neurological problem. They could be born with it. A lot of times, yeah, like that upside down. Great. Okay. So I'll just finish that thought, even though it looks like Pickled Pig Customs has a normal ball python that's just doing some glass surfing and going up on the ceiling like that. But if you do have a snake that's corkscrewing and you're like, oh, it's probably not a neurological thing because it's not a spider. Any snake can have that, and it happens sometimes with incubation problems. You get an incubator that's too hot, and you'll end up with snakes that don't typically have neurological problems, but these snakes do because of a incubator problem. Hi, VHS Draws. Hello, I love your videos. I got my first ball python last year in March. Congratulations, that's awesome. She's a pied, and her name is Dulce. D-U-L-C-E. How would you guys pronounce that? That's fantastic. Correct. Congratulations on your new snake. I love pied. Really happy with mine. Sorry, you guys. I was reading in my head, and I forgot that I'm supposed to be hosting a thing right now. Hey, Molly can I put you down? Can I put you back in your tub? This was really convenient. Her sitting right next to the rack. Okay, so yeah, so taming. I guess it's semantics on the language. Whether you can ever consider ball python tame. They're not tame in a domesticated sense, but I guess if we're talking about tolerating you, that I guess that's taming them down. If you get them to a point where they're tolerating you, which that's what it is. Molly, I just had Molly. She was crawling around, cruising around, wasn't acting defensive, but probably would have rather I didn't take her out of her hide. Just about any snake is there. I don't think there's any snake in captivity that goes, oh, good, this giant monster that feeds me sometimes is now going to handle me. They're not necessarily scared of it, but I think it's sometimes annoying to them. They're kind of like, oh, this guy again, come on. I'm just trying to sleep. I'm trying to be in my hide. So taming them down is going from having them go, oh my gosh, this massive predator monster is about to murder me. I better bite and strike and whatever. Taming them would be the mindset of, oh, this guy again. All right, I guess we're doing this. So you never know what actually goes through their head, but that's kind of how I feel snakes are. So anyway, that's that. Okay. Kent, come say hi to the people. He's outside, you guys. Kent, hang on. I'm going to get him. He's outside. Kent, come in. Come in. Because I'm on a live stream thing. Come say hi. Why did you set up your live stream right by the snakes? That's ridiculous. Because just go say hi. The snakes are fine. Everything's locked. I hate this. I hate it. Don't ever do this to me again. Hi, you guys. If you see him come out, somebody scream or something and let me know. If he comes out of because he'll be on me like an instant. Hi, everybody. We'll call this Kent's Corner. Welcome to Kent's Corner. On today's Kent's Corner, I'm going to answer questions. Welcome. Somebody asked me a question, and I'll answer it. In Kent's Corner. Oh, and there's tubs of snakes. I think they can smell me. I don't like this at all. Yeah, James, Molly's in her, she better not be by my feet. She's in her tub. Is where she is, and it looks closed, but you know that they can come out of it. If they wanted to attack, they could come out of there, bust through the plastic with their teeth. Have you seen how they open and they smell fear? So I'm trying to just calm. Hold on. Kent, what is your favorite animal? Well, that's a tough one. I find animals to be dangerous for the most part. I would say, I've talked about fish before, and fish don't usually have teeth, but some do, and I don't trust them. So I guess fish that didn't have teeth, but it would have to show me that it didn't have teeth. I would need scientific proof that it didn't have teeth. Oh, here's a goldfish. I have a goldfish swimming around. That doesn't have teeth. Really? Show me. Oh, well, I can't show you. I'm not going to open its mouth. Okay, well, then I don't trust. A toothless fish would be my favorite animal. That's what I think. Anyway. Let's see. What else? Pickled Pig Customs. Hi, Kent. Why are you so scared of snakes? Let me list the reasons. A. Snakes kill millions of people every year. B. Snakes are always plotting to murder human beings. C. Why do you even have them as pets? That is ridiculous. D. I don't even know why I work here, other than my mom tells me that I have to go and work for my brother. What are we on? C. Have you seen their teeth? I could go on, but I'm going to another question. Why do you think people think snakes are slimy when they are not at all? How do you know they're not at all? Do you have scientific proof that they're not at all? I've never touched one. Bob wants me to, but I haven't. And they look slimy. They look shiny. They look like they have slime. The slime is possibly toxic. Who knows? All right. Questions for Bob. DE reptiles. What other morphs and what? This is for Bob. What other morphs and what other combos are you interested in producing in the future? Hopefully 0. Because every time a new snake comes in here, it ups our chances of death. Right? Wait, I'm going to do one more and then I got to go and get Bob back here. Who's more dangerous, ball python or Jason from Friday the 13th? That's a fantastic question. Tough to answer. I would say one-on-one, ball python versus Jason. Maybe Jason if he's lucky. What if the ball python has a friend? You know they run in packs, right? What if a ball python has a friend? Jason versus 2 ball pythons? Sorry, Jason's dead. End of that series of films. My nephew says they do not kill people and they are tiny and it does not hurt. He is 7. Man, that is a brave 7-year-old. I was not that brave at 7 and pretty sure I'm not that brave right now. So he's super brave and man, he clearly hasn't read the articles about the millions of people a year snakes will kill. All right. Sparklebeard, your ball python is watching the stream and he looks hungry. Great. Now I've got snakes on the other side of the internet that want to eat me. All right, I'm out of here. I can't. This is making me really nervous. And one of these snakes is going to blast out of here. I'm going to get Bob. He's outside. Hang on. Hey, get back here. Come talk to the people. I don't want to be killed by one of your snakes. This is ridiculous. All right, thanks, Kent. Go. You're off, I guess, at this point. You can go home. You guys. I feel like, Kent's got fans and they like what he says, but I always have to say that Kent does not know what he's talking about, and he's absolutely ridiculous. I think it's obvious that he doesn't, but sometimes there might be people confused out there. Anyway, he's going home. I'm going to answer a couple of these questions. Hang on. Okay, a bunch of stuff for Ken. RZ Fitness TV. I purchased my banana pastel first ball python in April, and it glass surfed a ton for the first 5 to 7 days. Yeah. It ate and then started to relax. Behavior is so much more consistent since week 2 onward. Yeah, that's pretty common. That's about right. So if you bring a new snake home and you see them glass surfing the first few days, don't be too worried about it. But one of the things that I do when I bring a new snake home, I kind of assess how nervous they seem to be. But I would love for a new snake to get used to their home on a full belly. So, if they have a full belly, they're just going to sit in their warm side hide, hopefully, and relax and not do a lot of that. So I've mentioned this in videos before, But the rule is wait a week or even 2 weeks sometimes before you offer food to your snake. What I like to do is, if I know that I have a snake who's really confident and they seem to be confident, out of the box, I won't handle them for a few days, and then I'll just see how they react to a frozen thawed rat. I'll take a rat that I'm about to feed another snake and just see if they act hungry. Or many of you know my hairdryer trick where I blow a hairdryer towards the tub so that their tub fills with the smell and it's like a rat's in there. If they come out hunting, I'll feed them on day 3 or day 5. And that way they can, they're still getting used to their enclosure. But if they'll eat, that's great. That calms them down for another few days, So that works really well. Not every snake, I'm not opening their enclosure though and pulling their hide off and bopping them in the nose and being really aggressive about feeding and trying to get them to eat. What I'm doing is I'm offering them a scent and seeing how they react to it. If they're hunting, then I offer a meal. And if normally if they're hunting, they're going to take the meal right away. But if they didn't take the meal right away, I would leave them alone. That's it. I'm not wiggling it a ton in front of them or anything like that. It's just a really passive offer. If they take it, that's fantastic. Otherwise, waiting a week or 2 is great. So let's see what else. Gabrielle, I think people think snakes are slimy because they're shiny. Some snakes more shiny than others, but if you've never touched a snake and you see that it's shiny, it looks slimy. And people also don't understand the difference between a reptile and an amphibian. Frogs are shiny and they're slimy. I think more people have touched frogs than touched snakes. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I feel like people understand that a frog is slimy. Yeah, RZ Fitness TV, your shedding issue. Yeah, you just want to leave them alone when they shed. Also, you mentioned he was super immobile and cold to me. So keep in mind, you guys, that snakes oftentimes are cold. And the reason is that, your hand is around 98.6 degrees, give or take a couple. Well, maybe not give a couple, otherwise you'd be pretty sick, but take a couple maybe. But you're in the high 90s as your standard. And so if you touch a snake that's well under 98.6 degrees, which they almost always are, they're going to feel cold. So, and also if you order a snake off Morph Market or whatever and have it shipped to you and it comes out of the box cold and you're like, oh no, the snake's cold. That's okay. It's not that cold. It's going to be fine. It's better than the snake being hot, but it's always going to feel cold to your touch because it's not going to be sitting at 98.6 or higher, hopefully, because that could be bad news. Pickled Pig Customs, your 7-year-old nephew is so smart. I just lost the... let's see. Yeah, he ate on day 4 or 5 and struck the mouse in less than 5 seconds. That's great. That's great. That's how a lot of them do. Nate Daniels, hey Bob, big fan of the channel. Thanks. I've learned a lot. I want to get a baby ball python. What size enclosure should I get? Should I get a smaller one or go ahead and get its adult enclosure? Yeah, well, that's a tough question to answer. Except, well, no, it's not. Here's what I would say. Get it. If you're ready if you've got the space and everything, and you're ready for the big enclosure, get the big enclosure, and clutter it up with stuff. Your baby ball python, it still might be too big for them. It might be too much. And if that's the case, what you do is you get a cheap, here, I'll just show you Evie's. She's in there digesting a meal right now. So just get a little tub like that what you can do there, hold on, let me make sure she's back on her heat tape there. Okay. So you can get one like that or even smaller if it's a little hatchling. And what you do is have them in there with little tiny hides and make sure they're comfortable with that. And then what you do is you take that entire tub and put it inside your bigger enclosure and take the lid off and let them come out when they want to come out. That's how to do it. So that would be, and don't do that like in a week or in 2 weeks. Wait till they're actually ready to upgrade into something else. Make sure that enclosure is totally cluttered, and that they still have their enclosure that they're used to available to go into, and do it that way. I think though that most young ball pythons will be just fine in a big enclosure as long as it's totally cluttered. The problem is you're going to have a hard time finding them. But an enclosure like this, with hides and stuff, I'd probably put some things. I might put another few hides even in between the two main ones. And I would say most young ball pythons would be fine in an enclosure like that. They just have to feel secure, Dan, thanks so much for the super chat. I worry about burns even though I have a thermostat governing the temperature. What do you look for as early signs there's a problem? Yeah, I do too. I think everybody worries about burns. That's the early. So on the snake, a burn on the snake is you just look for redness on the belly, like probably patchy redness. I've never had a burn on a snake, but I've seen them, and it's more patchy than what it would look like if they're going into shed. And then, I'm just always checking my thermostats and making sure they're good. I realized the other day that my CHE up here, the thermostat turned itself off, reset itself for some reason. Fortunately, it wasn't going too high. It was just not running at all. So I reset it, but I check those a lot. And I'm trying to do a system right now where when I leave, I leave town for several days at a time. And I haven't done that for a long time, but I'm starting in a couple of weeks. And I've got Govee hygrometer thermometers in each tub, but they're not Wi-Fi connected. They're Bluetooth connected. So I think what I'm going to do is connect an old phone via Bluetooth, have it running all the time, and then connect my new phone to the old phone so that I can get into it and check all the temps that way. But I'm kind of I'm all about checking temps each day and making sure that things are not getting too hot. Also, these always. Oops. That probably was loud. Okay, let's see. What else do we have here? We've been going for over an hour now, you guys, so we're probably not going to go too much longer, but I want to answer some of these other questions. Thanks for sticking with me, by the way, you guys. This has been a long time for those of you who've been in for the whole time. Do you have any tips on switching from live to frozen thawed? My second snake was bought older and eating live. I haven't been able to switch her. Yeah, go back. I have a video that talks about that, all on feeding. There's one, I did them 2 in a row. One is why won't my ball python eat, or something like that, reasons that it's off food, and then how to get it on food. And I talk about switching from live to frozen thawed. Well, actually, that might not be true. I might just be talking about switching from mice to rats. My question would be what you've done already to try to switch your snake. What I've done to switch from live to frozen thawed is when I get the snake, I feed it its first meal or two live. And then I do the trick that I just mentioned where I blow dry. I have talked about this in another video before, but I'll just say it real quick. I take a hot, warm hair dryer and I blow dry the scent of a frozen thawed rat into their enclosure. I don't even offer until they're out hunting and they're really looking for it. If they come tearing out of their hide looking for that rat, they're in food mode. And when a snake's in food mode, that's when most people get bit, right? They stick their hand in and the snake immediately bites because they're biting first and asking questions later. That's what you want to happen to that frozen thawed rat. You want them in total food mode, show them that rodent and let them bite first, and then they'll eat it. So, and usually once they've taken 1 or 2 like that, they're switched. Other people are responding to that. That's great. Yeah, those of you, there's a lot of questions in here. So those of you that can respond, I'm glad you're jumping in to help people out. Scott's thoughts. Thank you so much. 28 people watching and 14 likes. Come on, folks. Yeah, come on, you guys. Hit the like button. I don't worry about the like button. I mean, I say it. I feel like I have to say it in the videos, like hit the like button and subscribe. I want the subscriptions. You know, I want people to subscribe and follow the channel. And I guess the more likes, the more the video will be pumped in the algorithm. But I have a feeling, even though this live will sit on my channel forever, I don't think people go back and watch lives as much as they binge the regular videos that are produced. If you're watching this and it's not live right now and it's later on and you're watching this, let me know that you've gone back to watch this live, because I don't think people really do that very much. Yeah, small plastic tubs may be cool for your first few months. Yeah, depending on the tub. I mean, you can. There's big plastic tubs too that you can set up nicely for your snake that work well. Glass enclosures, plastic enclosures, all that works. You hear a lot of people say that glass enclosures don't hold humidity, and I've said it before. Glass holds so much humidity that you can make a fish tank out of glass. It's the top of the enclosure that doesn't hold the humidity because it's made of mesh. So you just cover that and you have a nice humid holding glass situation. But tubs also work really nicely for holding humidity. I have to drill holes in my tubs because otherwise it's too humid in there. So Chris, I talked about this earlier in the video. You probably weren't on yet. He's asking, when you have deep substrate in a bioactive enclosure, as with the inspectors, how do you place the heating pad? There's two ways to do it. What I've done, and I haven't seen other people do this, although I don't think I invented it because it's a pretty simple solution. He's got a subterranean hide, so I've dug it all the way down to the glass at the bottom, and he has an under tank heater that sits at 90 degrees, heat gunned on the inside at 90 degrees. And so he goes in this little wood thing, and it's kind of a pile of wood with an actual black hide covering the glass, and he sits in his hide on the glass. So that works. The other way to do it would be to put it on the side of the enclosure. Snakes don't, as much as people will argue this, I'm sure with me, snakes don't need belly heat. They just need heat. They're fine with back. If you can have a basking area that's a back heat situation, that'll work fine. The problem is if you've got them in a hide. So let's say the glass is here, and you've got your heat pad here on the side, and this is the inside of the enclosure, and their hide is right here. You've got space between the glass and the hide, and it's, whatever's 90 on the glass is not going to be 90 inside the hide. So what I would do in that case is make that black part of the glass, because you've got a heat pad on there now, make that the back of the hide and use a hide that's open on both ends, because it won't be open to the snake on both ends, and they'll be able to cozy up to the back of the glass. The other thing to do is just use overhead type heat. But again, you've got a hide problem with getting the heat through the hide, and you don't want it to be like 120 degrees on top of the hide because the snake can climb on there. So a few things to think about. I like that he has a subterranean hide, though. I like that he can go underground. And he likes it too because he hangs out there all the time. Let's see. Okay, another thing from the 7-year-old nephew. My nephew would like to tell you our biggest boy is 1,200 grams. That's very big. That's great. And 4.5 feet. Wow, you've measured. That's awesome. Please do a big hello to my nephews, Anthony and Logan. Hello, Anthony and Logan. Anthony wants to know what your favorite food is. Ooh, that's a good question. I really like food, you guys. He is autistic, so off topic. That's okay. Also, if he's the 7-year-old, 7-year-olds are off topic. My favorite food, good question, Anthony. And hello, Anthony and Logan. My favorite food are two things: pizza, which I never eat because I get way too fat, but I love it. And Indian food. Love Indian food. Those are my favorites. Let's see. RZ Fitness TV cut cardboard to size and wrap in saran wrap to cover my mesh top. That works well. That's great. That's basically what I'm doing with plastic. I just found some plastic at the hardware store, like a roll of it, and got a bunch. Jessica, hi. Yeah, there probably is. I hope I can see these comments. You guys, I got to learn what I'm doing on YouTube, because the last live stream thing, I couldn't see I don't know how to get these comments, because I don't think they stay on, or maybe they will. I don't know. But Jessica's saying lots of future video content in these comments, and that's good to have future video content. You guys, don't be afraid to suggest videos to me, because I'm trying to do these once a week, and the ideas aren't always there. Although I have a plan for the next several, but I need ideas. Unicorn, we've waited up to 3 weeks before giving in and feeding alive. Yeah, my feeling on that is that whenever you bring a snake home, you just, even though you don't want to feed live, like I don't want to feed live. It's not something that I want to do, but I've gotten a number of snakes that are on live, and I'm pretty confident that I can switch them to frozen thawed, but I want them to feel as comfortable as possible. So I want to make their enclosure as close to the same thing that the breeder had, or the person that had the snake before had, and I want to give them whatever food they're used to eating. So that first meal will be alive if they're used to eating live food. Their first, or maybe first and second meal would be live. But you could also wait it out and see if they'll take a frozen thawed, Oh my gosh, Pickled Pig Customs. You are up at 2 a.m. with Logan and Anthony. Got it. Logan's 7, Anthony's 24. Cool. Okay. That's really nice of you to let them stay up that late. You guys should go to bed. What's an average weight for a year-old female ball python? Man, Alicia, that's tough to say, because snakes grow at different rates. And that's really nice of you to say. I love the content. Look forward to seeing more. Oh my gosh. Hold on. I'm going to get back to this. Pickled Pig Custom says they stayed up for the live stream. That's crazy. I appreciate that. That's really nice of you guys to stay up so late just to catch this live stream. That makes me feel good. So average weight for a year-old female. The gender doesn't really matter. Females do grow larger eventually than males, but at a year, males and females will be about the same. It's going to depend on what your feeding schedule has been. Are you growing them up slowly? Are you feeding them a lot? I'll give you an example. Let's just do this since we're here. Hi, Molly, you're still awake. Good. Let's see what Molly weighs. Because she's not quite a year, but I bet she's a couple months away from being a year, maybe. I don't remember when she was born, but I'm pulling my scale out. We're going to see what she weighs. Molly is a good eater, and she, I'm going to say that she is probably above average. But she also, doesn't fit on the scale. Will you just sit here for a second? She also would be below what people who power feed their snakes. Don't power feed your snake. There are people that power feed their snakes and try and get them to grow up. She's 6'15". Okay, so she's 600 grams, and she's not a year old yet. Some people power feed their snakes and they grow super fast and not healthy at all. And she she also has not been slow grown. I think it's the healthiest to slow grow your snakes. You don't want them skinny, but she's moderately growing. So that probably doesn't really answer your question because there's not an average. You kind of have to look at body condition. You want to make sure that their body shape is like this. That actually works. Body shape about like my mustache. Look at my mustache. Hold on, I gotta not be laughing. Okay, mustache type body shape. About like that. Maybe not that wide though. That's what the snake. That's what the snake should be. You don't want a massive ridge where their spine is, but you do want to see a bit of the ridge because that's where that shape will happen. And you don't want tons of rolls. You don't want their fat to come up on the sides of their spine, so their spine is buried in fat. So. Let's see. My 10.5-month-old banana pastel male was about 125 grams at 9 months. He's 150 to 160. He's small and adorable still, surprisingly small. Yeah, that's really small. I mean, 10.5-month banana pastel was 125 grams at 9 months. So you've had him for a month and a half. Okay. So yeah, I would say that is RZ Fitness. Hold on, let me see what else you say. 150 to 160 now. He eats 18-gram mice every 7 to 8 days currently. I'm upgrading him to 25 grams-ish rat pups next week. Good call. He could eat more, but I want to take it slower than faster. With healthy. Yeah. So my guess is. Alicia, you're saying she's about 600 grams. That's great. For a year-old female, that's totally fine. But also some snakes are longer, some snakes are shorter, but 600 grams for whatever length of snake at a year-old is fine. That's not going to be too big or too skinny. So RZ Fitness TV, my guess is that you bought this snake either from a person who's had it for 10.5 months and didn't know how to feed it. So it stayed like basically hatchling size that whole time, or you bought it from a breeder who knew he was going to sell the snake at some point and didn't want to waste his money on feeding it, which sucks. My guess is it's probably still healthy and it's fine, but that's something that I think some breeders do that's really unfortunate is they don't feed the snakes that they plan on selling enough that they sort of just grow at a normal pace. But I think your plan is good to gradually up the feed size and the prey items. Feeding them rats instead of mice will help. And then just get to a point where you're feeding regularly. And by the way, you could go every 5 days with a snake that size. Do that for a little while, maybe until they start putting on the weight. And then whatever prey item is the thickest part of their body. I don't worry so much about whether the rat is called a weaned rat or a small rat or whatever. Evie just took her first. Hold on, let me see what she looks like right now. She ate yesterday, so I usually give them a couple days. But look at this girl. So Evie, hi baby. Hi, can you come see us for a second? Pull her out for a minute. So Evie's my smallest one, and she's growing really well. She just took her first small rat. And the reason was the weaned rats that I had were smaller than I wanted to give her. They were considerably smaller than this thickest part of her body. And I had a small rat. I had several small rats that totally worked. So she took her first small rat yesterday, and you can kind of still see the lump there. I mean, she's turned right there, but I think that's probably where her lump is. That was a small rat. I don't know what the weight was on it, but, if I wasn't paying attention, I could just go, oh, that snake eats weaned rats, and I just throw a weaned rat at her once a week, and eventually they get to the point where they're outgrowing that and it's time to upgrade. Or you buy from a person that, or company. I buy from frozen thawed companies that calls a weaned rat something else. Sizes it differently, so you get a whole bunch of really small ones. So rather than whatever they're called, I just judge by the size of their thickness of their body. What's her weight? Evie is. I wrote it down on my mirror over here. She's 370. As of last week, she weighs more now because she's got a rat in her. But she was 370 last week. When I got her a few months ago, she was exactly 100 grams. So she's growing nicely. It was more. I've had her for more than a few months. Okay, now I'm reading. So you guys, we are an hour and 20 minutes in now, and I'm starting to lose my voice. So we're definitely going to cut it short at some point. I keep threatening that, but we will. Let's see. Yeah, that feeding sounds good, Alicia. The year-old and roughly 720. That's great. Robotron 1. I love your name. That's cool. Definitely not power feeding. We've had to skip a meal or two. He's really long though. Yeah, I mean, 720 at a year totally works for in not being power fed. Power fed, I would say, like somebody that's trying to get a female to breed before she should breed. And the female also has to be willing to eat, but there are a lot of snakes, even though ball pythons have a reputation for going off food and being picky eaters. There's a ton of ball pythons that'll eat anytime you give them something. So Delilah, my little freeway girl, would eat every day if I let her. So I could easily power feed her, and in a year she could be 1,200 grams, which I don't know if that's true that you could easily get a snake to 1,200 grams, because I've never power fed my snakes, but I know I have seen people that are really anxious to get their snakes up to breeding weight, that they've got a real young snake that's really fat, so just not healthy for them. They die early that way. RZ Fitness TV, thanks for the super chat. I do have an Instagram and a Facebook that you can connect with me. Green Room Pythons on Instagram. And Kent, who has long gone home now, Kent has Kentstagram. He's at the real Kentstagram on IG. So yeah, just look for Green Room Pythons. And then there's also a Green Room Pythons Facebook page, but that only exists because Instagram made me make one, because they're owned by the same company. And to have a creator account, I had to have an Instagram. So that just takes stuff that's already posted, and not everything that's posted on Instagram, but some of it, and transfers it to the Facebook, which I'm not active on. You could friend me on Facebook if you wanted to, Bob Bledsoe. You can find me on there. It's not much snake stuff. But anyway, that's that. Ball python that's 305. You put them on weaned rats now instead of pups? Yes, I would. Yeah, for sure. Weaned rats. But again, thickness of the thickest part of their body. And the other thing is you can weigh those rats and go 10 to 15%. At that size, at 100 grams, 200 grams, 300 grams, the general rule is you can maintain their weight by giving them a 10 percenter, and they will grow if you give them a 15 percenter. Now, once they get closer to adult size, you don't want to be giving them 15% of 750 grams. That's a huge meal. But when they're still little, you can do it that way. But just eyeballing the size. And by the way, you don't have to be perfect at eyeballing either, because remember how snakes eat in the wild. They grab something that's warm. That's it. And a lot of times it's way too small for just eating that meal, and maybe they'll eat a few. A ball python will raid a rodent den, and maybe there's a bunch of babies in there, and they'll eat a whole bunch of babies. That makes them sound like horrible creatures, but they got to eat, right? Or they get something that might be, 150% of the size of the middle part of their body, it's 1.5 times. They can get that down. They can eat that. And that would be great for a ball python in the wild to find a meal that's that size, because then they don't have to eat for a long time. That'll do them for a really long time. But in captivity, that puts a lot of stress on their bodies to have a meal that size. So we try not to do that. We go same size as, or maybe just a little bit bigger. But again, there's wiggle room. You can go smaller, you can go a little bit bigger. You just don't want to put too much stress on them when it's needless. They're getting fed regularly, so they don't need a massive meal to stress their body out. Oh, thanks, Dan, for putting my Green Room Pythons link there. VHS draws when you're talking to some. Okay. I'm trying to. Jessica, thank you so much for being on. Good to see you. You've probably already jumped off. Okay, this is the last one. Cocoa core and bark, fake plants. And do I need cleanup crew, or can I just leave it? Just leave it. The thing with cleanup crew, when you have just regular substrate and fake plants like cocoa chip or whatever, is that when you go to clean out that entire thing, which you'll do every 4 to 6 weeks probably, you're going to take all the substrate out, clean those fake plants, and toss it. It's pretty tough to pick out the cleanup crew out of there. I've thought about that. Like I would love to have, because it works. You can do it. In fact, I think Emily at Snake Discovery has a rack with some bioactive tubs. She's got bioactive substrate, so she's not clearing everything out. I think she's just leaving it in there, and it's got a cleanup crew. But you could do it. You could have a cleanup crew with cocoa husk substrate, but that still has to be replaced. You can't just assume that the cleanup crew is going to clean that whole substrate. So you'd be replacing your cleanup crew every 4 to 6 weeks. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me for this. This has been longer than I expected again, but I feel like I stayed on topic with the bioactive until we were done with it and then took questions. Thank you for all the people who super chatted. Really appreciate it. Thanks for your support. Love you all. Be back with another video on Monday, a regular video on Monday. Have a great night, you guys.